So this is Richard Lowe with the podcast Spotlight on Creativity, and I'm here with David Victor. He's an American rock vocalist and guitarist, formerly of the multi-platform band Boston, with whom he scored a #1 single, Heaven on Earth, in 2014. David also recorded, produced, and released 3 albums of original music as a solo artist and with his band Velocity. David, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, Richard.
So, David, thank you for coming on the show, and how are you today?
Very well. How are you, Richard?
I'm doing fantastic. Tell me your story. Tell me your story. How did you get? This is a fascinating thing. We've talked in the past. How did you get into Boston?
How did I get into Boston? Well, I was born in a log cabin. I always loved music, and my whole family are artists and writers and painters, but there's no musical blood really that runs in my family. So I kind of came to things a little late, but I think it gave me a little bit of interesting launch pad because I was I loved music before I knew I wanted to actually make music. And the first album that I ever heard that really started to change my life was the first Boston album, actually. And my sister's boyfriend at the time was sitting on our front lawn playing an acoustic guitar. And I was just blown away. I'm like, oh my God, how long have you been playing? And he's playing More Than a Feeling. And I'm like, how long have you been playing? He goes, 2 weeks. I'm like, this is the avocation for me. So that's kind of where it all started. And of course, there's a lot of details in between that. But I started playing music, started taking guitar lessons and playing music, and joined some bands after I was sort of learned all I could, at least all I wanted to learn from the teachers that I found, and just started playing in bands over and over again. And it was really when I moved to LA, because I grew up in Northern California, where there's really not a whole lot going on musically. I'm in kind of a isolated backwater part of California. And there is music from the San Francisco Bay Area, but in terms of a scene, it's pretty isolated. You've got a few Skrillionaires, and then that's it. So LA was great. I moved there and met a lot of people, and actually joined a band called Smokin', which was my first foray into doing music of other artists in earnest. So they call them tribute bands, which I think is the stupidest name ever, because it implies you're all hoisting, I don't know, canteens of beer, and these guys are fabulous. You just play the music, You're just basically promising the audience that you'll only play the music from this one artist. So we did all the music from Boston, and one of the videos that we shot meandered its way on YouTube and found its way into the home of Tom Scholz, who is Boston. And they called me 2009 and said, hey, how would you like to come out and record at Tom Scholz's studio? So it was a good, it was like if you've ever seen that movie, Rockstar with Mark Wahlberg, pretty close to that. It was a similar situation as like your first audition is going in and recording. So, but mostly what we did is play live. So it was a wonderful experience.
And how did you feel when you got that invitation?
Oh my God! I mean, it's like if you've seen that movie, That Thing You Do. There's a moment in there where they start to hear their song on the radio and they freak out. And that's pretty much what it was. There's a weird thing that happens. I don't know if everybody gets the same feeling, but there's almost like, when you fantasize about something or you dream about something, that when it actually comes true, you're sort of like, yeah. It's not. It shouldn't make you pass out or something like that. At least it doesn't to me. I just kind of go, yeah, this is how it's all supposed to happen. And of course, having perspective on it a little bit after having, been out of the band for 4 years now, I see it more for what it was, which is just a real brass ring kind of, amazing, wonderful moment. But I was ready for it. That's the key.
Okay, and then you went in and you did your interview or your audition, and you immediately were picked up?
Yeah, so I went into a studio. It was just a random weird thing that my wife at the time and I had a vacation scheduled out to visit her mom in Cape Cod. So that's pretty close to where Tom's studio is. And so I said, well, actually, I'm coming out there in a couple of weeks. And they said, yeah, great. So we'll see you here. So yeah, just drove up to a studio and got right to work, basically. Just to, I know he auditioned a lot of people up to that point, and including one extremely famous person that they never told me who it was. I wish they had, but they kept dropping hints like they were going to crack, and they never did. So, but anyway, once I sang, and it was a very low song. So being as you can tell, my voice is very high. And listening to Boston, it's all, it's all that stuff. I didn't think I'd come in and have to go, but that was what the audition was, and so that's what I did, and I was just confident enough in my lower register that I was able to pull it off. And actually, it was funny because after I did that session, and I was maybe there for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours or something. We talked a little bit afterwards, and they sent me on my way. And then like that night, or maybe it was the next morning, his assistant called and said, well, Tom's, he's not sure about the sounds, and he's got some stuff going on in the studio, and we'll call you when we're, ready. And I thought, oh, that's it. I failed. That was their way to sort of blow me off or let me down easily. But then a couple of days later, she's like, okay, you got to work it again, so come on. So I was like, okay. So I went back in and did a few little touch-ups. And after that, it was like, let's go. But it was a number of years before the band toured, and during which time I wasn't allowed to tell anybody I was in the band. So that was hard.
Oh, I can imagine that was difficult.
Yes.
So when you started touring, how did that feel on your first live gig?
It's interesting. We rehearsed for several weeks. I don't think it was a month. It might have been 3 weeks. And I think the first time I went out there, it was for a week. Then you go home and come back a month and a half later or something like that. And then you rehearse right before you're going to start the tour. So I believe it was 2.5 or 3 weeks of rehearsing. Pretty much you're there at the studio every day. There's a lot of waiting around. And a lot of playing too. We probably played because it's still a 5-piece band even when the band leader's not there. So we played for 8 or 10 hours a day, which I was told was a lot less than it used to be. So I guess that's a compliment. And once we embarked on the tour, we always started at the Hard Rock. It's like an arena down in Hollywood, Florida. You might know it, being down there in Florida.
Don't know.
Don't know it? Okay. But it's a nice kind of mini arena, like a minor league hockey rink size. But it's plenty big for your first experience. The great thing about that was we went in there at least 2, maybe 3 days before the first show, and we just ran the show with all the lights and all the PA and all the production going on behind us. So by the time the show actually happened, it was kind of funny. It was like we'd already been on that same stage, looking out over the same vista, 3 days in a row, and all of a sudden there's just a bunch of people there. So it wasn't too bad. Just going out and muscle memory basically.
Were you nervous?
I'm sure I was. I think, looking back, it's hard to remember. Oh, did I have butterflies? I'm sure I did. But now I've done it so many times since then that it doesn't. I don't get the same useless nerves. I get excited and anticipatory, but I don't get the jitters or anything like that. So I probably had some of that at first, especially with your voice. It's easy to get. It's easy to let the adrenaline sort of push things in the wrong direction.
Indeed. Now, I know we had some talks earlier, and you mentioned you've played with some rather famous rock stars in addition to just Boston. Can you talk about some of those?
Sure. Do you mean who opened for us, or just other bands that have been?
Whatever you want. Other bands who opened.
Yeah. So, so when I moved to LA, like I said, and this is sort of maybe a creative bullet point, but going down there was the best thing I ever did for my musical career. If I'd stayed up here, none of that would have happened. And I think I read this in a book recently, but basically he was saying, you should go to where it's happening. If you want to be an actor or a musician or whatever, get to LA, get to New York. Don't sit in, Racine, Wisconsin or something going, I'm going to kill it here in Racine. I mean, you might, but that's probably all you will do. It's not a hard and fast rule, but I just think the blending and mixing and the networking effect of being in a place where there's a lot of people who all want to do the same thing is really powerful. There's somebody who wants to do the same thing. It's a powerful career move, I think. So I would definitely encourage anybody who's got a sort of location-specific avocation to go to those areas. If it happens to be London or Dubai or whatever it is. For me, it was, LA. It was kind of a no-brainer. It was all the music was, and I planted myself in the 818 area code, which is where all the, sort of the sidemen are. So it's a lot of, this is the bass player, one of my best friends to this day, the bass player in Quiet Riot, Chuck Wright. Met him the same night I met Ricky Phillips, who's a bass player with Styx now. And he was playing with Montrose for a while. And then through meeting Chuck, I met Pat Torpey, who was the drummer, fantastic drummer, who just passed away, unfortunately. But amazing drummer from Mr. Big. So I was just sort of meeting all these different people, kind of just with one entry point, really. Chuck's a huge networker. And, going to the NAMM show, which is the National Association of Music Merchants. You kind of go and hang out, see what people are doing, and meet people that way and catch up and network, and in person too. The internet, social media is a pale imitation of pressing the flesh, and it probably always will be, at least before, I'll pass off this mortal coil before it's any better than being in person.
So you were going to talk about some of the superstars or
so Chuck Wright, Ricky Phillips, Pat Torpey, Jason Hook, who plays with Five Finger Death Punch now. I mean, these are rock star. Maybe you'd call them sidemen, but they play in huge bands in front of millions of people. I never met Paul McCartney or any of that. Even when we played at when we played at Boston Strong, I did meet a few celebs at that. That was probably the highlight celeb moment, playing at Boston Strong with Aerosmith. I got to sing with Steven Tyler, stand on stage, sing in the same mic with Steven Tyler. That was cool. And met Joe Perry, and met Donnie Wahlberg, and guys from Extreme, and Doug Flutie. I don't know. There was a bunch of Boston area people there. So that was great. And Boston, it's interesting when you have a band that's a classic rock name. Typically what you're doing when you're a national act, you're going out, you're headlining shows. And sometimes you're playing with other bands, but usually the promoters don't put more than one band on the bill unless they're worried that they won't be able to get the ticket prices they need or enough butts and seats. So if you ever see an ad for a band that's hey, come to the Shoreline Amphitheater and see blah blah blah, it's because blah 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 isn't selling. They would never advertise if it was selling. Or if you see an opening band that's a local band, it's only because they want those extra 200 or 300 seats sold. They would never put a local band on because it's just a pain in the ass. You got to get there earlier, and sound check, and time and sleep is always the most precious commodity on the road. So that's about all the superstars I met. But that was a good smattering there.
That's more than most people meet in their entire
And I met
lives.
Gene Simmons at the NAMM show. That's pretty good too.
Interesting.
Okay. Oh, wait a
Okay.
minute. I thought of two more. I met Eddie Van Halen and Alex Van Halen at Eddie Van Halen's 50th birthday party. We just happened to walk into the restaurant when they were there, and this was also in the 818 area code. So, man, if you're somebody who likes to see stars, you should definitely move down there. It's fun.
Interesting. So you eventually moved away from Boston and formed your own group. What happened with that?
So I started a band called Bostix at the time. We've now changed the name, but it was basically, since it was 2009, I joined Boston, and each year it'd be like, are we going to tour this year? No, I don't think we're going to go out this year. And they would go out at that time about once every 4 years. So I was kind of thinking, man, I got to get in shape, for this tour. I want to be ready to go when I'm called. So I put this band together, and it's half Boston and half Styx, because my drummer does a great Styx vocal. So we put that together, and that was currently running while I was in Boston. I'd obviously left smoking by that time, and started another band called Platinum Rock Stars, which still exists today. It's the 70s and 80s classic rock show. I've got another band called David Victor Supergroup that I just put together, which is all formerly of guys formerly of Creedence Clearwater, guys formerly of Night Ranger, Joe Satriani's band, and Y&T. So it's all like a formerly of little supergroup. And then, of course, Bostix, which is now called David Victor, the hits of Boston and Styx. And for reasons I can't go into right now, but it's morphing. It's morphing. And so there's a lot going on. A lot of times people think, oh, what's your band? Well, my band's David Victor and the hits of Boston Styx. Oh, okay. And, well, maybe this other band you'd like to see. Well, you're in 2 bands? Well, yeah, I've actually got 4 bands in it. Oh, my God. So I keep myself pretty busy. That's the intention anyway. I like to say I'm running an experiment to see if it's possible to make a living in the music business. And so far the answer is no, but it's a qualified no.
I understand.
Yeah.
You've named a lot of the rock stars and stuff that I grew up with, and as I've gotten older also. And these are all my favorite bands, Aerosmith and Boston and Styx. Yeah. I could go on. So it's very interesting talking to you. You also do a lot of charity work. That's my understanding.
Indeed, yes. So one thing we started doing, we started with Bostix actually, but kind of morphed into, actually I forgot a show. My other show is called Rockin' America. I'm looking at my show listings here, and those are the only 3 that are up there. But the other show is called Rockin' America, which is a rock and roll road trip across America. 50 of the greatest rock and roll songs in one 90-minute show. How do we do it? You'll have to come see. So that's the 4th show. But so we were working on Rockin' America, and we really wanted to, it was a show about the community. It was about America, but it was also about the local place that we were playing, and it kind of was born out of this feeling I had when I was touring with Boston, that we just zip into town. You're in a bus, you park in some cement, underground parking lot. You walk into a backstage area, labyrinth, with all these signs going, green room here, food here, this way to the stage, and all this stuff. And then you go to the stage, you see all the seats, it's great, play your show, everybody's happy. You do they would call it grip and grin, which is just a fast way to say meet and greet, but it's basically just shake their hand, look at the camera, smile, boom, 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 boom. Because you're trying to get out of there to get on the road to get to the next destination, because you have to be at the next destination that night or early the next morning to ensure that you can do the show. So, but it was such a hands-off kind of an experience, kind of antiseptic in a way. Obviously hugely enjoyable, but I really felt like I wasn't, I've been to New York twice, for example, but I never really got out of the bus except in the venues. We played at Jones Beach. We played at, I can't remember the one upstate New York, but, we'd driven through New York City, and I never saw I never saw it. So I just finally cured that this year. My wife and I went. But so I wanted to do something, a show that was like kind of about bonding to the community, about America, but about, really the people that make America work. And so it's kind of a grandiose concept. In fact, it's probably too much to bite off. It was originally called Rock Stars and Stripes, and people thought it was a political rally. It was sort of what we heard from our surveys, so we've changed it to Rock in America. But basically the idea was to find out about the places we're playing in. So for example, we go to Saginaw, Michigan. What do people in Saginaw, Michigan do? Who do they root for? Where do they work? How did they grow up? What are the things that are important to them? And we really do a deep dive. We have a whole spreadsheet that we put together that basically says, these are, here's the governor, here's the, where the state capital is of this state. And just get down to where do they eat? What do they drink? What's the local beverage or whatever? And really try to find out a lot about the community so that we can talk to them a little bit and not just say, hey, we have a show, we're coming to town, see you later, but really know something about the community. So, for example, in Saginaw, we got to know a charity was part of that whole thing. And we've done a charity at each of those shows, but just giving the example of Saginaw, we got to know this charity called Major Chords for Minors. So they give music lessons to underprivileged kids for free. So it's a 501c3, and what we do is we had an autographed guitar that's all been wrapped up in our. I'll show you a picture of one, but I don't have one on me. But it's all wrapped up in our logo type, and we autograph it, and then we auction it live during the show. So the show's going on, and there's a live auction happening on the video screen as we play. And so people have fun. They can bid on their smartphones. And we raised a ton of money from charity, up to $5,000, $6,000. One show, our record with Bostic was actually $12,000. So we make a significant contribution to the local charity. And we're really trying to, generate some goodwill in the community. Obviously, our donation is a guitar. But it generates goodwill, and people see us as doing something that's more than just entertaining. So I really like that. I love that connectivity. I love getting to know these places. I really do. I'm fascinated by people and what they do and how they live and what kind of music they like, obviously. And so that's been a part of everything we've done. So we continued that on with my supergroup band, and we've done autographed acoustic guitar auctions, and we've raised the first show. We raised $6,000 for Lazarus, which is a local cancer charity. We raised over $2,000 for the Napa Humane Society. So it goes on, but it's always about where we're playing. We play in Napa Humane. We play in Danville. It was Lazarus because they're a local charity. We played at Hannah Nicole. It was for a local school for their band program. So I love that aspect of it. It's fun.
Interesting. Now, if you were talking to somebody who wanted to get into the music business now and was just starting, what would you tell them as advice?
Yeah, first and foremost, move to where it's happening. Networking is not just, something you do online. I found a lot of the online platforms severely wanting. It's a lot of people that say, hey, great job, and aren't going to lift a finger to go to a show or get a booking or anything like that. You really have to meet people. And I will say, we have tons of videos online. People watch it and they go, okay, yeah, and then they see us live and they lose their minds. And they're like, oh my God, we get this a lot. Not every show, but we get it a lot where they say, you're the best band we've ever had here. And I think two things. I think, number one, maybe we're playing in the wrong place. And number two, they're having an experience with the live music, the live experience of hearing music really made in front of them in real time that is unduplicatable by virtual reality or video or anything else. When something's being done right in front of your face, there's an energy and electricity that's just generated, and possible to quantify. but it's an essential part of the live experience, and the reason why people are drawn to events and they don't just sit in front of their computer and watch videos. Some people do, obviously, but the people that go out and support live music, they network with their friends. So first and foremost, get to the right place. LA if you're in music, maybe New York in drama or something, but or writing. I don't know. I have to ask you if that's a completely asynchronous affair now, but all the big publishers are in New York still, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I think.
But there's a good writing community over in Tampa.
Oh, very good. And it's you. It starts with you. So that'd be the first thing. Obviously DIY. The Boston thing, honestly, was the greatest thing that ever happened to me musically. But it was from a video that I posted because I thought it represented me well, and I put it up there and I tagged it, and it was out there to be found. So though I was found, I don't believe I would have been found if I hadn't done something for myself. And then since that point, just been building my own shows. I built the Hits of Boston and Sticks. I built Supergroup. I built Platinum Rockstars. I built Rockin' America. And actually, dovetailing with your charity question, I'm starting my own 501c3, which will be called Harmony and Healing, which is about going into hospitals and doing music for cancer patients, people who are in long-term care, and just bringing a little light into their lives and some healing.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Do you have anything else you'd like to say to our audience?
Gosh, I think I've been rambling on a long time, but just creativity. Actually, I do have one of those. We're actually starting to write our own songs. So in my tribute band, the Hits of Boston Sticks, we're writing our own music. We have built a following, and we realized we're squandering this following by just doing the same thing over and over. There's only so many songs that these bands have done, and so I thought, hey, we should write our own music. So we are starting that process. In my supergroup band, they're all original songwriters. We're going to be writing, that'll be an original band. Right now it's all, hits because we just got together. But the creative process is so amazing, and it's unlike doing anything else that you do as being somebody who's a marketer. I mean, I'm mostly a marketer. I'm mostly a creative person in the marketing sense, but getting back to my roots, which I actually have 3 albums of original material, and writing music is that is the way to leverage yourself ultimately, and branding yourself. Don't go off somebody else's brand yourself. And everybody says this, but it's really true. And it's embarrassing. It took me a long time to brand myself as David Victor. I wanted to be in a band. I want a bunch of guys in my band, and we have a band, and that's great. But at the end of the day, if you're doing all the work and you're getting the opportunities and you're securing the gigs and you're basically making the sales, it's your baby. Getting people on board your baby is important, and maybe you need a group mentality for that, but ultimately you're in control of your own branding destiny. So get on board with that as soon as you can.
Well, good. Thank you, David. Thank you for coming on the show. This is the first of several.
Exciting.
It is exciting. It's exciting to finally interview you. I've had quite a few conversations with you, of course.
Yes. We remade my LinkedIn profile.
Yes. I think you liked it.
I loved it. I've sort of shifted my focus, so we'll do a little more work here soon.
I'm pleased to help you there.
Sure.
All right. So we've been with David Victor, previously of the band Boston, and now with the band, what's the name again?
Well, now there's 4 names.
4 names.
The Hits of Boston and Sticks is one. Supergroup is the other. Platinum Rockstars is the other. And Rockin' America is the video montage, 50 hits in 90 minutes blowout.
It's enough to boggle my mind.
Yes. A headache.
I'm tired just listening to it.
Very good. That's exactly how I want to leave everyone.
Yes.
Boston.
So I've been with David Victor, and this will be a continuing series, and if you subscribe down below, then you'll be getting information about them regularly. Yes, subscribe below. And thank you for coming, David. And
Thank you,
until next
Richard.
time. All right.
All right. Talk soon.
That's a wrap.